Wow, and welcome to another episode of the Nick Rodriguez podcast NFL recap show. I am, of course, joined by Charles Hagen, and man, what a wild card weekend that was. Arguably the greatest playoff weekend of all time. And we have Bills Chiefs, that was phenomenal. Titans Bengals, which I feel like a ton of people are sleeping on that game, even though it was incredible coming down to the wire. It's tough being the first game of the weekend. Packers 49ers, we're definitely going to talk a lot about that. Bucks Rams coming down to the end. So a lot of great games to talk about. What's next? Obviously Mahomes and Josh Allen will totally dive into all of that. We're going to do the three-word game. We're calling it give us the headline for each game, and we're each going to give us our take on each one, since there's not as many games as was the previous week, and then we're going to look ahead to next week. But before we do that, welcome to the show, Charles. I mean, incredible weekend of football.
Yeah, man. Like you said it. I mean, it very well could be the greatest weekend of football we've seen, at least our lifetimes. I mean, every single game was decided on the final play. Plenty of overtime, lots of game-winning field goals as time expires. So just a lot of evenly matched teams due to circumstances, and it was just a whole lot of fun.
Unbelievable. I mean, if you just watched one game this weekend, I think you would have been happy about that. Meaning, like every single one truly lived up to it. Titans Bengal was awesome. Rams Bucks was crazy. Packers 49ers, they were all phenomenal. But as we did last week, and since we've had a lot of people say that they really enjoyed this segment, we're gonna do our three-word game. And as I was teasing before, since last week there was a lot more games, and we both wanted to talk about, we both want to make sure they're covered. Since there's less games, we're each gonna have a three-word phrase for each game. But Charles, why don't you get us started with the game of the weekend, Bills Chiefs?
Yeah, man. Bills Chiefs. I mean, it's so funny. So each game, one after the other, I was like, oh, this game's even better than the last one. And that's
Yeah.
how it ended up being with Bills Chiefs being the last game of the weekend. I'm doing the three-word game. I'm doing greatest game ever. Like, I don't even think that's exaggerating.
It's crazy.
There were 18 points scored in the last minute and 14 seconds or something like that. I mean, that is absolutely unbelievable. Patrick Mahomes going all the way down the field with 13 seconds when you for sure thought the Bills had it out of the way. I mean, you just watched two incredibly young, talented quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and you can't help but thinking, I know I saw this on Twitter a bunch with Mike Gallick was saying that as well, that this is probably the new Manning v Brady. Just like already this rivalry has occurred the past few years, being in the same side of the division, the AFC in their conference. So this is something that we're going to be looking forward to for years. And just with Josh Allen having another chip on his shoulder for next year, potential MVP season incoming next year. But how about yourself? What are your three words?
I mean, I was having trouble coming up with three words to describe this game, because I was thinking this would be the easiest one, but I was like, man, I was gonna go Hall of Famers, because I'm like, lock it in. I mean, like you're saying with the new Manning and Brady, we forget that we still have Justin Herbert in here, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, all in the AFC. So this AFC is going to be wild. I mean, an incredible game. My three words: somehow, too much time. I mean, time and time again. I mean, what else does Josh Allen have to do to get a win? I mean, win the coin toss, I guess. 13 seconds left should have been enough to win it. I'm sure you guys have seen it with Kelsey saying he wasn't going to run the route that Andy Reid called, and then Mahomes says, do it. And he gets open and he gets a massive game, maybe 15, 20 yards, and they kick the game time field goal to send it to overtime. Unreal. I mean, watching the highlights, I'm still hyped, because I'm like, oh my God, seeing the stuff in the first half, Mahomes is Superman, touchdown early in the game. My thinking here, and this is just a little bit of a tease going into later in the episode when we talk more about Brady. It feels like it's almost like a Brady 2.0. As one might be leaving with Brady, this guy is unreal. I mean, it's unreal. Allen is beating almost anybody that night the way he was playing, and Mahomes was just not going to lose. He was not going home. And man, I don't know how he does it. That game was incredible. They were both balling, and I would watch that game 10 times again. That was awesome.
Yeah. Let me tell you, that worked out, that play with Travis Kelce, and I saw the video, the conference afterwards. But if he ran to that spot and the linebacker changed his responsibility, Andy Reid would not be as pleasant about that
No
play.
way.
Like, that's fantastic. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce have that chemistry. They made that play and sent that into overtime, but that could have gone very, very poorly if Travis Kelce didn't run Big Red's play that he wanted to, and it didn't work out.
I just got to feel a little bit for Josh Allen. I mean, damn. I mean, what else? What else can the guy do? I mean, he takes the lead. I mean, when Mahomes kind of takes the lead back, how much time did Allen have? Maybe a minute, about 57 seconds or so, and I mean, his arm was ripping through and firing it, and he takes the lead, thinking he won it with 13 seconds left, but somehow it's too much time for Mahomes.
Yeah, and you know what? Josh Allen played a near perfect game, man. I have a question for you on this spot, actually, about this.
Yeah.
What do you think about the overtime rules? Do you think that they should be changed, more formatted, at least closer to college football, if not the same? Or are you on the side that you're like, hey, your defense got the opportunity to end that game, and could have with the Bills? Which way are you leaning here?
I mean, when you give up 42 points, it's hard to win football games. So I think it's tough. Like, you're not going to really hear this rule a lot when it's week 6 of the NFL season and your team loses. You're kind of fine with taking the loss because it's so early in the season. But as a selfish fan, you want to see them continue to play just because you're seeing maybe 2 of the most talented players in NFL history. I don't even think that's hyperbole at this point. Mahomes is unreal and Josh Allen is unreal. So selfishly, yeah, I would want them to continue to play it out. But honestly, I don't think the rules should actually change. I think there should still be some defense. I like the field goal rule. What I don't like is in the regular season ends in a tie. I think you should continue to play until you have a winner. I think that's weird that you have a tie. But yeah, of course you want to see these 2 gladiators go at it. But also there's defensive guys who are being paid to play. You got to make a play. Maybe there is a little bit of adjustment where they could both get the ball, but at some point, defense just has to do something there, even against Mahomes.
Yeah, no, I'm with you in terms of that, but I also think I think it's ridiculous that the overtime was ever like this way for the NFL. Just that one team gets the opportunity to, like, if you think about baseball, if you're going to extra innings, that
Right.
each team is going to have the opportunity to hit. Than that, like, you have to have both the offense and defense have an opportunity to score to further that game. So I think it's kind of ridiculous that only one gets to based off of that. It's just kind of unbelievable to me. But I would go towards something that maybe they start at the 45-yard line instead of the 25-yard line and make it a little bit harder to score, and then go college rules based off of that. But I think that's something, a tweak, not the exact college football rules, but something along those lines.
I don't mind that. That's actually a good point. The thing that would be crazy if that game was a college-ish or something like that, that game would go on forever. I mean, that game still might be going on if it was. Because they weren't going to stop each other. So both of those guys are unreal. So I don't know, but that is a good point. Maybe a little bit of tweaking so Allen does at least have a chance to kind of match it to see if he can get a touchdown. But that's fair.
Yeah, and have it in a point because you don't want the team playing like in a football game. You don't want extending that long. So I see that's why they currently are doing that. But
Right.
Make it a circumstance that it is in between those 2 rules, maybe not one way or the other, just so each team gets an opportunity to score.
Regardless, phenomenal game. Mahomes remains king of the jungle right now, and it's exciting to see what he's going to do next. But what's the next game you want to talk about here? You want to go a little Packers 49ers, or you want to dip into something else?
You know what? I'm going to bring you to the Packers right here, and I know this is your team, so I'll ask you some questions following that, but we'll start off with your headline. So for your Packers game, what's your headline?
Not so special. Giving up basically, the missed field goal. It was a blocked field goal because we don't like to block up in Green Bay, when it comes to special teams. Blocked field goals, so that would have changed the game. We would have been up even more at the half. Then the blocked punt where they get a touchdown. That's 10 points right there. Unbelievable. I mean, that's just something that's extremely frustrating as a fan, especially when you remember how they got down there at the end of the first half when, it looks like they're even trying to not do anything with that possession. They're just going to maybe go into overtime or go into the half, and 49ers call a timeout. Huge play to Aaron Jones. God, I wish he was able to somehow score and weave his way into that. Wasn't able to, and to get no points out of that is extremely frustrating. Also with Rodgers, damn. I mean, you look at his numbers and you go, okay, like not that bad. 225, very, very efficient. But in today's world, and if you look at every other game that happened this past weekend, other than Josh Allen, everyone got it done. Josh Allen balled out, but he happened to go up against the best quarterback in the league right now, which is Mahomes. Joe Burrow, I mean, he found a way to get it done. I know you have some stuff to say about Burrow later on. He found a way. Your superstar quarterback, Hall of Fame quarterback, should figure out a way to get it done, and he didn't, and now we're at home.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate with having the number one seed, with this Aaron Rodgers having the last dance type of year. So I'm going to hit you with my headline, then I'll ask you a question afterwards. But I'm just going to say with that, no touchdowns required. Think about that. The 49ers won a football game with no offensive touchdowns in the playoffs. As you said, it was the one blocked kick on special teams that ended up having their only touchdown the entire game. I just think that Garoppolo did what he needed to do, be that game manager.
Yeah.
Deebo Samuel had one of the biggest conversions I've seen in a playoff game of recently. I mean, running the ball on 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 6. I forget what the exact down and yardage was there, but it was on 3rd down pretty much for the game that they decided to go for that there. Run the ball, Deebo Samuel, electric player as always. And I just felt like watching that game that Rodgers was just not stepping up, that the way you saw, Burrow, Allen, Mahomes step up in their respective games there.
Yeah.
So I would have liked to see, out of the probable MVP and, the probable last season that he's going to be in Green Bay, I would have loved to see an all-star performance from him, especially after his comments 2 years ago after losing the 49ers.
Yeah.
He was saying like, oh, well, if we were in the divisional round or championship round at Lambeau playing at the weather that I typically play on, the outcome would have been a little bit different. So he kind of just ate his words time after time. A little bit of what Rodgers had is a little bit of a trend this year. But question for you, what happens to Rodgers next year? Does he retire, stay with the Packers, trade? What do you think?
Well, what's interesting is I think the Packers offensive coordinator is currently interviewing for the Denver Broncos, which we know the Broncos are obviously interested in Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. I mean, he's so weird. I didn't think that he seemed to really care that much when he walked off the field. You could see the expression on Josh Allen's face. Josh Allen might be my favorite quarterback in the NFL. I mean, the way he plays. I know I'm trying to talk more about the Packers, but Allen is just so incredible. Rodgers, after the game, didn't look like he just looked smug. He didn't look like he really cared that much. I think it's complicated for a lot of Packers fans. Do we want him back? I mean, yeah, we do, because he gives us the best chance to win. But at the same time, he creates a firestorm of a lot of different things. And the reality is, I think he does go somewhere else. I think he ends up being on the Denver Broncos or something like that, which would make that AFC even more incredible. And the Packers would be terrible. But I don't know. It's very frustrating based on all of his comments, based on everything that he said over the last 2 years and even beyond that, and just to not be able to deliver like everybody else who won this past weekend did.
Yeah, like I talked about this during the midseason podcast. Like, I thought Packers look great, but I think they look great every single year with Aaron Rodgers. And what's finally going to get them over the hump? I think Aaron himself needs a change of scenery. Like, of course, you say as a Packers fan, Packers organization knows that their best chance of getting a Super Bowl now within the next 5 years is Aaron Rodgers, right? But I think that Aaron Rodgers has to be completely in it, and I don't think he is. So I think that he will be finding a new home next year too.
100% agree. We'll definitely be talking about that more later on, but let's move on to another game so I don't have to break my heart a little bit even more. Let's go over to Bucks Rams. What was your takeaway from Bucks Rams?
Yeah, Bucks Rams is Rams outlast GOAT. I mean, Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. I mean, it's indisputable at this point.
Yeah.
And he still had a massive deficit. His only other largest deficit in the playoffs was the 28-3 with the Falcons in the Super Bowl years ago on the Patriots. But he overcame that deficit and tied up this ball game. I mean, he put his team in every position to win. And Stafford just looked like he wanted it more at the end of the day. I mean, the Rams kind of look like they might be eyeing up a team of destiny type situation in which, as you said last week, and they spent all this money, they made acquisitions, and it's paying off with Odell Beckham Jr. being the highest rated receiver right now in the playoffs, Von Miller making massive plays. Matthew Stafford not only winning his first playoff game, but leading to another win over Tom Brady, the GOAT himself. So Rams are looking like that complete team that we all thought they kind of looked like. I mean, who knows? We could be seeing a Rams Chiefs powerhouse Super Bowl later on. That's my headline. What's your headline looking like, Nick?
Man, what I mean, mine was just win, baby. Like get the win and get out of there. It might be a little ugly. I mean, they were cruising early on. I mean, it looked like they were going to blow them out, but then everyone goes, hold on. You know who's on the other sideline over there? We know it's Tommy B over there on the other sideline, and it's so weird. It's like the mojo. It's just confidence. Somehow the ball pops out, and here we go. And they tied it up, and I thought it was over, and then was fumbling again, which would have been game because the Bucs would have won it right there. How about that throw to Cooper Kupp to set it up? I was at a bar watching it. With some friends, our friends were going for the Rams because we don't like the Bucs, but some people were for the Bucs. And when he hit that, everyone was going bonkers. So just win. It was, you were cruising early. I would ride on that confidence. The GOAT, he is impossible to beat like Mahomes. So when you get it done, just be happy that you won. And I'm sure they're thrilled over in Los Angeles.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And this is something that they've been waiting for years to have this opportunity again, after coming up short a couple years ago against the Patriots in the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. So a little bit of poetic justice there. But yeah, let's move on to our very last game we've got here. Bengals Titans, one that we opposed on for our picks. Yeah. So first off, kudos to you. You saw it running with the Bengals as we've been running all year. I went the opposite route with Derrick Henry-led Titans, ended up playing with a steel plate in his foot. But what's your final headline for this matchup?
Defense wins games, and both of them played crazy defense. I mean, it was really back and forth, but just some late defensive plays. And my dad says this, and I think it always makes sense. He says, good teams find a way to win. Bad teams find a way to lose. And I'm not calling Tennessee a bad team. I'm just praising Cincinnati. They just found a way. Tip ball, interception. Like that last possession, Tennessee's kind of moving the ball a little bit, near midfield. Great defensive play. Ball gets tipped up. And this is what makes the NFL weekend so incredible, because we had a shootout with Chiefs Bills where 100 points were scored. And then you have this where it's, 16-6 Bengals. And we're like, wow, you see Jamar Chase kind of popping off here and there. So it ends up coming down to the defense. And how about that kicker saying, oh, well, it looks like we're going to the AFC Championship game. So phenomenal play. So cool to see Cincinnati doing so well with Joe Cool. And he's going to be there for a while. So this AFC is about to be hella interesting. What about you?
Yeah, my God. I'm going to say Burrow overcomes hits. There was a playoff record 9 sacks by the Titans. I had never, ever heard of a game like this so lopsided. I mean, the Bengals only had 1 sack this entire game. So for the Titans to enforce 9 in a game that they lose is unbelievable. But you saw Burrow in his rookie year taking hits all the time, with a horrendous offensive line, and he would just get back up, get destroyed, get back up. And that's what he did. And I think that motivates your entire team when you see your quarterback back there taking hits, standing in there, making those throws. He did not throw for a touchdown in this game, but he racked up over 340 yards passing. And it's just like he put his team in positions to win. He converted third downs, and they found this winning formula of drafting Jamar Chase for Joe
Oh yeah.
Burrow. And they just have this LSU championship swagger in which they know they've done this before, and the big stage is not too big for them.
It's awesome. I mean, it is so cool to see these guys playing at such a high level. And you and I have been talking about Cincinnati and how cool this is for Cincinnati. For them to be like this so young into their careers, what are we going to be seeing the next 10 years? I know we have Burrow and Mahomes coming up this weekend, but in the next 5 years, we're going to be seeing so many great Lamar, Mahomes, Allen, Herbert. I mean, it's the AFC is so great. And then you think about the NFC, who we have in the NFC, Brady could be leaving. Rodgers is always, he could be, we don't know what he could be doing. So it's going to be interesting to see the landscape. And I don't know, maybe this opens the door for Stafford kind of dominating, the NFC for a minute if he stays healthy and he stays with McVay. So extremely interesting stuff to see from this game.
Absolutely, man. No, I thought great segment here with the 3 words. And I think we should move to the what you got. And we had 2 questions that are just timely with this week in terms of headlines. So I'll ask you first. What would you think would be a more shocking event? Obviously, we heard the news today. Sean Payton leaving the Saints, probably retiring. Is that more shocking? Or if Tom Brady decided to retire after this year, what would be the more shocking event for you?
I'm actually going with Sean Payton. I mean, I know we talk about Brady like he's never going to retire. He's going to play for another 70 years and win another 10 Super Bowls. But I think it's Sean Payton because it comes out of the blue for me. I think it's just something that it's just crazy. He's been there for 16 years. Obviously, he delivered a Super Bowl back in 2009. So I just thought it was like, whoa, it's maybe I was missing something that was on the horizon. But he didn't say that he was retiring, which I think is interesting. He just stepped down from the New Orleans Saints. So could he be going to another position? Would the Cowboys be interested in Sean Payton? So I think that shakes up the NFL more than a Brady. Brady, we do kind of see coming. Would that be shocking still? Yes, but I think Sean Payton leaving the Saints, I thought that man would always be a Saints head coach, and if he wasn't and he was going to retire, I thought he would still be coaching in the NFL. So Sean Payton for me.
You know what? I think why I'm not as surprised about Sean Payton is because I've seen him on his TV gigs recently. Like, he likes doing his analyst shots. And I think the fact that Drew Brees retired and not having that franchise quarterback made it easy for him to leave that position. So we will see what he does if he ends up going to TV, another team, or ends up retiring. But for me, it would be Tom Brady. I mean, I have no idea what the NFL is like without Tom Brady. He's been in our entire lives since we've really been following football. And he's been playing and dominating ever since, as we know. So I would be absolutely shocked if Brady retires. He's made a comment earlier this year that, like, if he's able to, he play till 50. But it's also he has to consider his family aspect. Like,
Right.
I heard a quote earlier today about Kobe Bryant never knowing, when you're taking your last breaths. And it's just like he has this time with his family, and Tom Brady's seen so much success. Maybe it's his time for him to walk away. But being at the top of his game, I mean, being an MVP candidate this year, I would be surprised if Tom Brady retired this year still.
It would be surprising. It would be shocking for sure. I don't know. Some of his comments after the game are a little cryptic when he's talking about Giselle and his family. So maybe this is the year that he hangs it up. Do I want to see that? Absolutely not. I want to see this guy keep playing and beating my team because he's the greatest of all time. I hope he plays another few years at a high level and retires a champion because he's cool. And I've grown to like him more. I feel like I used to not like Brady at all, but him as a Buck has made him more friendly, and he's kind of a ball buster. So I'm kind of with Brady now.
I hear you, man. No, it makes sense to me. And then final question here. You want to introduce our final question that we got for the divisional round?
Yeah. So in a weekend where we saw a lot of phenomenal games, I think something is kind of being brought under the radar a little bit is that both number 1 seeds were knocked out, Titans and The Packers. How could I forget that? My question for you is, what's the more surprising loss? Is it the Titans versus the Bengals, or is it the Packers versus the 49ers?
So I think for me, and I maybe you'll have a similar answer. I think it's the Packers just for I think a lot of people throughout the week in terms of national media did not respect the Titans as a number one seed. So I
Right.
think that in terms of Bengals as a four seed coming up against the Titans, that was a much more likely scenario to happen. When I was listening to national coverage, there was pretty much nobody that thought the 49ers were going to overcome the Packers. Just as that sixth seed squeaked in the playoffs, they were the very last team in the NFC to clinch the playoffs. Eagles, as a seven seed, clinched in week 17, where the 49ers took until week 18. So having that very last team in to overthrow the number one seed Packers, many of whom thought were going to win the championship this year, that was more surprising to me. What about yourself?
I agree. I do agree. I think people who haven't been paying attention much would still be very surprised that the Bengals took off the Titans. But like you said, I don't think the respect is there, unfortunately, for Tennessee. But that coaching staff is phenomenal. Really wouldn't walk away too upset if I'm a Titans fan, just because you still have a lot there in Vrabel, in that organization that you can trust. With the Packers, it just feels like, what's really next for Green Bay? This was supposed to be the year. This was supposed to be the year that we said, wow, okay, it's wide open here. San Francisco, they have a crazy defensive line, but, Green Bay's got a good offensive line, and they got some good weapons here. You should be able to do that. Oh, and the game's at home. And you have the greatest quarterback of all time. So, or one of the most talented of all time. So you should be able to do this. And it's funny, in this question, at the beginning of the game, going back to my dad, a Cowboys fan, by the way. So you just, the logic isn't always great. He said, oh man, don't worry about it. The 49ers they're going to get smacked by the Packers. I'm like, Dad, no, the Packers, and his logic was, well, they beat the Cowboys, and the Cowboys aren't a very good team. I said, well, Dad, the 49ers are still a really good team. They got Nick Bosa, they got Fred Warner, like they have a good team. Shanahan's a great play caller. So I'm like, it's not going to be a blowout. He's like, watch, this is going to be a blowout. So after the Packers go up 7 and the 49ers punt, he's like, watch, this is going to be a blowout. They're going to score. It's going to be over. And it wasn't over. And he was trying to convince me later on after we lost that, no, it should have been a blowout. It should have been a blowout. My dad, a game that's 13-10 can never end up shouldn't being a blowout. That's not how it works, but I understand his point. So I think he would agree that the Packers game was more surprising as well.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. I agree. I mean, both number one seeds going down on their first appearance in the playoffs.
Crazy.
I don't know what the stats are on that, but it's obviously improbable as well.
Definitely. You want to do some game picks?
Hey, let's do it, man. We've been I don't know how hot we were last week. I think I went 2-2. I think you might have gone 3-1.
I think I did, my guy, because I got Packers wrong, I got Rams right, and I got Bengals right. So I get 2-1.
Very good, man. Yeah, I don't even know. It was an off week for me. My first round was so much better, going 5-1. It just was for sure worse. I forget. But yeah, you know what? I'll pick first then on these.
Go for it.
Think 49ers Rams. I know 49ers have beaten the Rams twice this year. It is so difficult to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. And although I'll be rooting for the 49ers as underdogs, I do think Rams close this one out. It's just for the pure reason that coaches such as McVay are too good not to game plan what beat them the last 2 games. So I think Rams will win and that they'll advance to the Super Bowl.
I'm going to go with the Rams as well. I do agree. It is really hard. And I actually forgot about that. They had already beaten them twice earlier this season. But this game is going to be a tug of war. I mean, these guys going back and forth, McVay and Shanahan, that's going to be a fist fight. Obviously, it's at home in LA, so they have home field there. But I am going to go with the Rams. Jimmy G, like going back to the Packers game, his numbers weren't great, but there was a lot of drops in that game. Like, you remember Kittle had a major drop early in that game. So he actually looked like he was pretty comfortable in the pocket. I actually thought he played pretty well enough to win the game. And he has played at a high level. And it's funny how we were kind of been like, well, I don't know with Stafford. And he absolutely torches Tampa Bay. So I think the Rams do win and they make it to the Super Bowl. Can't believe it's already like Super Bowl time. But LA goes to the Super Bowl, and for the second year in a row, we have a team hosting and making the Super Bowl. So that would be awesome.
Wow. That would be cool too. That's tough to beat when you're hosting. I mean, to have a
Ooh, SoFi Stadium.
home advantage in the Super Bowl, I mean, there's literally nothing better than that.
Also,
Go ahead, man.
Before you do that, have you heard the halftime show like list? Who it's going to be?
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
It's unreal.
That's like a legendary lineup.
I mean, it's unreal. So, I mean, like LA. I mean, that's going to be awesome. So, I'm going for the Rams in this one to see them beat the 49ers. But
all right, man. We'll move to the AFC. I'll let you choose this time. This is a tough one because you don't want to choose necessarily with your heart. This is a very difficult one to pick. So Bengals versus Chiefs. Just a reminder, the Bengals beat the Chiefs just a few weeks ago, 34-31.
They did on that crazy game.
Pearson, 20-yard game-winning field goal when the Chiefs tried to lock up the number 1 seed. So there's some recent history here, but what are you picking?
It's like I almost want to call them the Cincinnati Cojones because they like have the biggest goal. I mean, they don't care. Their coach is they just go for it. That game was crazy at the end. They could have lost that game, but give me the Chiefs. Give me Mahomes. He is still king. He is going to somehow figure out a way to outduel Joe Burrow. The line is 7 points, I think, right now. When I last saw it, I don't know if it's going to move. The game will be in Kansas City. I think similar to the Rams, kind of what you said before, being on a destination. Chiefs are on a mission after losing in the Super Bowl last year. And I mean, Mahomes just doesn't lose to anybody else in the playoffs except for Brady. And now that he's out, he is really looking for blood. And I think we're getting Chiefs versus Rams, baby.
I picked the Bills last week to beat the Chiefs because I thought Josh Allen was the only quarterback remaining in the AFC that could beat Mahomes.
Yep.
And obviously we saw how this worked out last week, literally a historic effort to beat the Bills there. So even though my heart wants to say Bengals so bad, and I'll be cheering for them. If Bengals win, that'd be fantastic. Yeah. But I really don't see Mahomes losing. I think Mahomes is going to be playing with a vengeance. And I see a Chiefs and Rams Super Bowl.
So we both have Chiefs Rams?
Yep, that's what we're thinking.
Ooh. So if it ends up being Chiefs Rams, who are you going to be going for?
Depends how this week goes. It's all about momentum. But Rams at home versus Patrick Mahomes, who you just said lost in the Super Bowl the previous year. There's going to be a lot of energy from each team. So I'm going to hold off on my pick yet and wait to see what happens. But you can go if you'd like.
It's tough. I'm going to hold out as well. We'll talk about that next week for sure. But guys, comment, like, subscribe, share, do everything you got to do to help us beat the algorithm once again. We will be back here next week to talk the conference championship games, and we'll talk more about awards. We'll get more into the Pro Bowl as we have that gap in between the championship games and the Super Bowl. But man, what a phenomenal week. Of phenomenal football. Thank you again, Charles, for joining me today, and we can't wait to talk to you guys next week.
Yes, sir. Thank you.